happening, everyone? Hello, and welcome to the Review Roulette podcast, the podcast that brings strangers together for a movie night. I'm your host, Laura. Join me as I bring two strangers together as we watch and review a randomly selected movie. Now let's spin that wheel and see what movie Lady Luck has picked for us tonight. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Review Roulette. This is a special Roundtable Roulette edition. We're going to be watching Lake Mungo on the Roundtable ones. It's essentially somebody really wants to talk about a movie, and we can't really make that work in our format. So we're like, you know what? Screw it. We're just going to watch Lake Mungo. And then it was kind of a weird serendipity that we were watching this movie because essentially the week before we were talking about this movie on our... it was with Rainey, who's on this episode today. We were talking about pure Australian horror movies, and then my husband's like, I really wanted to see this Lake Mungo, and then I think it was like 3 days later, Lee said, but like, I really need to talk to somebody about this movie. This movie scarred me, and people need to know. People need to know about Lake Mungo. I was like, well, I guess because I don't like horror movies. My husband loves them, but I'm like, I'll watch Lake Mungo. It's foreign, so it's supposed to be fancy. But so Nick, what is Lake Mungo about?
Lake Mungo came out in 2008. The description is just strange things start happening after a girl is found drowned in a lake. It is directed and written by Joel Anderson, who is known for such things as The Rotting Woman, Gravity with Paperclip, and Lake Mungo.
He started out strong. We're not going to know any of these people.
No.
Maybe Rainey will know some of these people, but we're like...
Also stars Rosie Traynor, who plays Julie Palmer, who's known for Lake Mungo, Blue Heelers, and Cut Snake. David Pledger, who plays Russell Palmer, who's known for Lake Mungo, Blue Heelers, and Grievous Bodily Harm, and One Night Stand.
It's like an atomic bomb going on.
Yeah, and lastly stars Martin Sharp, who plays Matthew Palmer, who's known for The Crimson Room, Serving Joy, and Blue Healers as well.
Okay, so we'll bring on the person who's gonna torture us. So,
torture you.
Yes, no, you're here too. So Lisa, why do you feel like people need to watch Lake Mungo, and what was it? Because did you see it recently? Because I was surprised that it came out in 2008 when I was like looking into it. I was like, I would have thought it came out like within this year. So what is it about this movie that made you want to like scream at people about
or scream in general? I saw it a year ago. I'd heard about it from longer ago than that, but it was a big deal when it like finally came out on Amazon Prime. I think it was harder to find before that. So everybody had recommended it before, then I jumped on it and I haven't stopped thinking about it since. I know that horror movies, sometimes it's just like really grim or the spectacle of the gore and stuff. It's nothing like that. It's just like, I don't know, there's stuff that's frightened me in a different way. So I can't wait for everybody to be changed forever.
Is there a movie that you would compare it to? Like that because people have never heard of it, like it's an Australian movie, we'd be like, well, it's kind of like this. Is there a movie like that where you'd be like, I'd kind of sell it to you like this, but is it completely different?
It's like, it's part of the whole found footage-ish genre. Well, I guess it's a mockumentary, so people might be quick to think, oh, maybe it's more like a found footage movie like Paranormal Activity. But there are some like just really, I can't say too much because I'll spoil it, but there's some like really like static, frightening imagery that like lingers for a long time in the same way that Hereditary did, but definitely not nearly as like action intense as Hereditary. So I see you cringing. Don't worry, we'll be okay.
I got a lot of beef for this. I'm excited. I was just like, yeah, I don't like horror movie. I don't know. I don't like being scared. I feel like I'm very jumpy. So it's just like, I'm already jumpy in life. It's like, I don't want to experience that for a thrill. Like I'm going to go watch a movie or I'm just scared all the time. I'm like, yeah, that sounds like fun. But yeah, my husband loves them. So I have to sit there and be like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to watch this. But yeah, so I'm excited. I'm excited for Lake Mungo. But I figured we needed our Australian correspondent. So I'm going to bring in Rainey. Rainey's on the scene, even though she's not, because she's not in Lake Mungo.
G'day, mates.
I got mushrooms on the Barbie for breakfast. You're like, no. Oh.
No. No shrooms in Australia.
The little bit I looked into Lake Mungo, it's actually it's very culturally important for the Aboriginal people in the area. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's it's not really a lake. It's a dry lake. So when water comes in, it's very important for the local area.
Drowned in the movie.
I have no idea. Maybe it was during one of the raining seasons. I don't know. But yeah, it's very culturally significant and also very historically significant because some of the world's oldest remains have been found there. So they found some remains that are about 40,000 years old, and also one of the oldest versions of cremation. They also found that. So that indicates some ritual burials that were going on a very long time ago. That's very significant, yeah.
It's just weird to think like 40,000 years ago. It's like, yeah, we found some people in the lake. They're like, oh. And then let's see. So how far is it from where you are?
Quite a way. I'm not even sure how I can actually. I'm up towards, so you got the state, imagine it's big square. I'm up here. Lake Mungo would be down there. So it's quite a way.
It's always weird, like when you think of Australia, for some reason it's like being in America, you kind of think that Australia is smaller, but then like obviously it's way bigger. But it'd be like, yeah, so how close are you to like Montana from like New York? It's like it's actually quite far. Like,
it is, yeah. Australia is basically the same size as America.
I'd be like, yeah, you could probably go down there all the time because it's like that's why it's funny when you're talking to Henry earlier about like, oh yeah, I haven't been down there. I'm like, well, you live in the same continent. I was like, wait, that just means like I haven't been to New York. It's like, but I'd just be like, why haven't you been there yet? It's on the same continent. It's like, oh, that's
and it's quite a way inland as well. Most of Australia just lives along the coast, so people don't tend to go inland.
It's like what is it? Not Sweden, Greenland, where like we all live on the edge, on the edge all the time.
On the edge.
And I guess you should probably say a little bit about yourself. I just forgot to do intros. I'm like, I want to talk about Lake Mungo.
Yes, well, I'm Rainey. I'm Australian. I have a podcast where we talk about incredibly niche readings of Pokemon fan fiction from the Nuzlocke community. So if you really like Pokemon fan fiction where the Pokemon dies, you're in for a treat. And that's called The Writer's Lock. And yeah, I host and I do the discussion segments. So if you're really into writing as well, in general, we do a really good discussion segment each time.
It's like not only do they die, they die after you like name them and like emotional
bonded,
and then they die. You're like, oh, okay.
I like that I'm like, oh, I won't even watch a movie when a dog dies in it. And I'm like, hey, let's watch a scary movie today. No dead dogs. It's fine.
Wait, did talk about that, right? Because then I should have looked into that.
I don't know if I can take it 7 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, there should be like a website where it's like, is there any animal abuse?
There is a website of that. I don't remember.
Oh, there is? Okay, that would be
good idea.
It'd be a lot of like, no one told me. Like, what is that, John Wick? And I was just like, oh God.
Oh, no.
The movie.
Like it opens with that. I'm like, why?
Chernobyl. We had to like skip.
Oh yeah,
whole,
Chernobyl.
Like,
we had to skip through the whole. This is what they do to the dogs. I'm like, oh my God. And I guess Lisa, you should probably say who you are too. I just brought you on. And I was all excited to talk about not Chernobyl. That would be horrible. I don't want to do that.
6 hours.
Yeah, 6 hours. Lake Mungo. But,
I'm Lisa Knapsiger. I'm a comic artist. I'm part of the Godzilla fandom community circles online. People know me either from drawing like neon portraits of different kaiju, or recently I just like to draw them with guns, and it's fun. Sometimes I'm excited to see people interacting with that strongly, like yay, but then other times I'm like, are we okay? Maybe not.
Are you wearing a Godzilla shirt today, Lisa?
I am, yes. And then oh, perfect. Right on the Criterion thing in the background on your guys' end. Nice.
I got a Big Trouble in Little China shirt on, so I'm not really representing today.
And I've got Dick the birthday.
Yeah, you got a red letter meet. Yeah, we failed. I'm okay with that though. I'm fine with that. Yeah, and then Rainey Lisa is friends with our favorite person to make fun of, Alexander the Swell.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I need to make sure that we do our Sonic the Hedgehog podcast sometime. That would be hilarious. I did an episode with Henry. Maybe that's his introduction now.
Oh, that's sad.
This is my show, Lisa.
Okay.
But I mean, it was good. So
is this where you torture Henry?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now out of free speech,
that's what happened last time. Yeah, because
space to
talk. A lot of steps to this. Yeah. But
I'm out of free speech jail. I'm out of free speech jail. I can now enter this wonderful world and talk about anything I want. My name's Henry. I host a podcast that came from a monster movie. I'm also currently the director, producer, and writer for the upcoming giant monster audio drama Apex, a giant monster audio drama. I had a witty remark But like from the sounds of hearing this conversation, we are watching the Australian version of Twin Peaks because everybody's last name is Palmer. So are we looking for the body of Laura Palmer?
There's a
'Cause
body.
she was also found in a lake.
Wrapped in plastic.
No, shut up.
Is she going to be like, should we take a drink every time we're like, oh, isn't this a Laura Palmer plot point? Oh,
I was trying to look into like drinking games associated with this movie, just so I'm like, I need to find a way to get through this. And I was like, I should do it every time they say lake. And I'm like, no, I'd be like gone like halfway through and be like, Nick, take over. You gotta host for me now.
I also will note that if I suddenly have my teacher or parent voice on, it's because the two dogs, which I thought, oh, they're asleep, are now awake.
Never asleep.
But
I
that's
was
fine.
when I'm editing and I can hear like our dogs walking in the background. It was just like people trying to talk. And it's like click, 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 click. It's like you motherfucker.
But I'm excited. Lisa's been whispering this movie in my ear for a while now.
Maybe it's
and
just
then-
a way that I'm trying to cope. I don't know. Like I have
Like
to,
other
I have to
people
like
must
pass
hear.
on the burden of this.
And I
movie.
always like watching Australian films. I went to Australia in 2018. Was that 2018? Yes, it was 2018. I went to Darwin, Australia, and Sydney. I am so sad though because I bought the most amazing shirt in my entire life in Darwin, but I sadly left it at a friend's house in Korea, and they still have not mailed it to me. But I really, really need it because it was the most amazing like region shirt I've ever seen in my life, and I had to buy it. It was a crocodile, and it said "See you in the NT." And it made me really happy.
Good.
I want my
Yeah.
own.
One of our
Really, really
advertising
happy.
campaigns at one point.
I was like, yep. I was like, this is the most Australian thing I've ever seen where you're just in Darwin, Australia. And that's like Darwin's signature.
See you in
Sure.
the North Territory.
Yep. See you in the North Territory. It's good times. It's good. I couldn't wait to wear it at a gym and be like, it's not offensive. It's just saying, see you in the Northern Territories of Australia, a beautiful place in the world. It's great.
It's kind of the sad thing about living in America. Like you watch like British TV, they say it all the time. You're like, I want to say that. That's a fun word to say. It's like, no, here it's horrible. horrible. But yeah, okay.
Like
So,
Lake Mungo.
yeah, Mungo does sound offensive. It sounds like something you would be like, I've got the Mungo. You're like, oh no.
No, isn't that the name of the cowboy in Blazing Saddles? They're gonna send out Mungo.
Is it?
Wow, am I the only one making a Blazing Saddles reference? Like it's Blazing
I've
Saddles,
seen the
guys.
movie. I don't remember. I don't think it's
Mungo. It was the big cowboy.
Is it Mungo?
Yeah, it's Mungo. I'm gonna fight somebody. It's Mungo. It's like one of my favorite parts because they do the straight up Looney Tune bit.
I don't even know where to transition for that, Henry. I don't even know what to do.
Speaking of Mungo,
Yeah, speaking of Lake
Yeah.
Mungo,
We're
There
gonna
you go.
Mungo watch the movie.
Mungo. I guess so I haven't seen it yet because I was waiting to watch it. And then is Lisa the other one? Did you watch it, Rainey?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
So I am the only one.
Oh,
Nice.
you've just
Time to pass
first
the
this
curve.
viral movie to 4 other people.
I mean, it works on my show sometimes. I also sit here being like, Laura, I know how you could survive this movie, if you want to make it a drinking game. Every time I use my signature review roulette catchphrase, is this a porn parody?
I don't
I've
want
seen
it
this
to
porn
turn into
parody.
that.
and you can take a Jello shot.
Yeah, no, I've got
Yeah.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Jello shots.
Perfect. It all works out then. I've seen this porn parody before. Laura Palmer. There we go.
Oh, it actually, because when you're talking about, I don't know if any of you have seen like The Fourth Kind, where it was like the mockumentary about
I
aliens.
saw The Fourth Kind a very
Oh.
long time ago.
The way
I
he made
haven't
it,
seen
I
it,
made
but I
it
know
really
of it.
bad. Yeah, and I remember when I watched that, like I was so gullible that I thought it was real because like it's like the way I was like, there's aliens in Alaska. Like, I was all for it. And then I found out the one lady was an actress. I'm like, but she said she was real. So this is probably going to be more emotionally damaging because I'm going to think this is like because it kept saying it was based off a true story. Like in my mind, as soon as I see based off a true story, it's like this is a factual representation of everything that happened the entire time. I'm like, oh my god.
I mean, a lot of
It's
people
horrible.
die in bodies water in Australia. Like Rainey, like when I was there, it was like man died by crocodile because he was swimming in river, Northern Territory. Like,
Yeah, you don't go swimming, especially multiple times, like at the same day. Don't make a routine if you're in the Northern Territory. The crocs will know.
yeah, Yeah. And then if you go in the ocean, just everything else is there.
Sharks, stonefish, deadly
Box jellies,
cone shells, things.
the blue-ringed octopus.
Irukandji, those tiny little jellyfish that'll absolutely make you beg for death.
Yep.
The lakes aren't safe. The ocean's not safe. You guys have like really scary bugs too, right?
Well, you have the funnel spider.
The size of a dinner plate. I'm like, why do you live there?
Or the centipede, right? There was one fighting a snake. Did that happen in Australia? I don't know.
I picked up one of those giant centipedes as a kid accidentally. I thought it was a stick.
Fun fact about Australia. Australia is the only place in the world with wild herds of dromedary camels.
Mm-hmm.
Aren't those the camels they're trying to kill because they have too many emissions?
Yes.
I don't know about emissions, but they do some damage to the environment, unfortunately.
Because
we have so many feral animals, it's horrible.
Because I was watching a thing about invasive species, and like you wouldn't think that a camel would be. I'm like, I would probably think that would be because it's huge and it eats stuff. It's like it's just like going through. But I was watching. They had they were doing like camel hunts, and I'm like, that sounds horrible. I wouldn't want to do that.
I hear camel doesn't taste bad.
Probably just like, isn't it? It's probably really lean, isn't it? I know. I guess.
I just know that there is such thing as like a camel turducken, which is like. I think it's
fourth dimension.
I think it's like a pig and a sheep, and the sheep's in the camel. I don't know. Is there then a turducken in the sheep? Because I feel like you could fit a turducken in a sheep, right? So it's just like the inception of there's a barnyard of animals
book.
Before you get
the kid book, the old lady who swallowed the fly, like the whole. Oh man, I had the kind of book where you could open it up and see every animal progressively.
I'm amazed that no one's actually made that story. Yeah. I'm amazed no one's made that story into a horror film yet.
We got the Battleship movie, but not the old lady that swallowed a fly.
I mean, that's kind of like Centipede. It's just they just picked animals that were all the same size.
Ooh.
Like that has a monster in it. Like no.
Let's not. No, don't put that in the ether, because then people are going to think it's okay to Patreon the episode that.
The next Patreon of A Kid from a Monster Movie. Human Centipede 1 and 2 double feature.
Just do Ivan Ooze. Let me talk about Ivan Ooze.
Yeah, I want to watch Power Rangers so bad. I haven't seen that in so long. That'll be a good one to be on.
I was like, I could always pick that after the 2.
Yeah.
The first Power Rangers movie?
Yeah.
Filmed in Australia.
It was?
Yeah.
Oh man, that's crazy.
Well, most Power Rangers is filmed in Australia or New Zealand.
Yeah, mostly New Zealand because they have better tax breaks there.
Yeah, like most of the dwarves in The Hobbit were Power Ranger actors. I think Thorin was a Power Ranger actor.
That would not surprise me at all.
Yeah, most of the.
You have my dino axe
and my blue meth.
Yeah, my blue meth. What?
Bryan Cranston.
Bryan Cranston?
He's a big part of Power Rangers.
Oh, that's right. That was a big jump, babe.
But that was a big jump. That was the original.
I followed it, Nick. You're fine. Are we gonna watch this? Wait, so is this found footage?
It's a mockumentary.
So found footage.
Yeah, that's got to be right.
I suppose.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean,
Lisa.
it's not like somebody's like camera was picked up after the fact.
Blair Witch.
I think there's interviews because we watched the first couple minutes and I'm like, I should just wait to watch this.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's like.
Oh, so is this going to be like The Bay?
It's like the fourth kind, Henry. We just talked about this.
Okay.
It's going to turn into those.
I forgot that the fourth kind was an interview style thing. I just remember being very excited as a high schooler and then watching it and being like, could have been better. But...
Could have been good. Okay, Nick, okay? We'll start Mungo Bay.
Yep.
Okay, we're just going to go watch the movie now, and we'll be right back here for our review in part 2 in just a second. But just so you don't feel left out, here are some choice clips from us watching the movie.
It psychologically damaged me. I don't know. I hope that's a ringing endorsement.
Should I be drinking then if it psychologically damaged you?
It just made me laugh. Laura was like, oh, Henry can do it too. And I'm just like, do we want to psychologically damage Henry? I don't know.
Look, we just did Rat's Night of Terror the other night. I'm psychically damaged as it is.
after you had said that, then we watched it. We're like, oh yeah, that's what she meant. He can't keep the Varan. The Varan is not a pet that you can keep.
I'm really sorry, guys. I know it's really sad and serious, but I'm waiting for when they call their like North American relatives, the Palmers, and be like, "Yo, bro,
Right.
you know your daughter also disappeared at a mysterious lake by a dam."
Do we have a family
how
curse?
did she handle Laura's lesson? And then it's a drop bear.
Don't joke about drop bears. They're serious.
No, seriously, guys, Australia drop bears are really, you gotta watch out for them.
I just imagine a bear with like a little parachute being like, I'm coming to hug everyone.
They're aggressive koalas.
Let's get started with part 2, shall we? But first, if you'd like to be a guest on the Review Roulette podcast, just sign up at our website. It's www.reviewroulettepod.com. That's www.reviewroulettepod.com.
Lake Mungo. It wasn't a lake. Wait, so what lake did she drown in?
No, she drowned in a dam. It looked like just a normal farm dam.
Yeah.
I feel like that's very misleading.
I told you that it was going to have to bend your mind.
It's like it's the only movie with a drowning in a Dre Lake bed. You're like, how did you manage that? You're like, I buried stuff in that bed. Oh, so did they? So her ghost went back in time.
Her ghost from Christmas Future came and found her in the desert.
Basically.
It was because the whole time I was watching it, I was just like before they started going into the. Well, I guess it was kind of when they started doing the ghost stuff. It's like whenever you watch ghost movies, it's like, oh, like something must have happened to her. So the whole time I was waiting for like the weird neighbor part.
Mm-hmm.
It was like she's just a normal girl who had like an accident. And now she's just.
Well, speaking of my dog, he's going crazy.
Yeah.
It should have been like there's a part of me that's like it should have been like the neighbor thing just felt so wacky tobacco
Yeah.
and went nowhere.
Yeah.
And it's like, couldn't it have been like a sex cult?
Yeah.
Like
It was very much a hard jump cut because it was like her sitting on the bed, just them going at it. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Suddenly just
well, it's not
nudity
just that.
and things
It's just
moving.
like we've canceled the ghost stories, but now we found out that the brother who's manipulating the ghost stuff isn't there, but something still happened. Oh, scandal. And then it's like nothing's
Henry,
done with it.
When you went to go let the dogs out, you missed the mid-credit
Oh,
roll.
I could hear it. I could
Oh,
hear
right.
you guys saying, look at all the ghosts.
Yeah, so it went through a lot of the old pictures and like the background image,
Yeah.
and it showed there was actually her sitting over in the corner when
Yeah.
the brother had photoshopped in the image of her.
Yeah, so it's the yard picture. His image is her in front of the bush. And then, like, if you look off to the side, she's just sitting on the bench looking at him like, what the fuck, man?
Or
And she's in the
maybe
background of
it's
the
like the
birthday party.
Mandela effect. Maybe it's the Mandela effect. And you don't even realize because it's a film.
I didn't understand, like, it showed the grandma at the end. Or was that the grandma?
I feel
like her,
like they
though.
were doing some kind of hint on the fact that, like, apparently it might have also been like a generational thing. Because they kept saying the phrase that was weird, which was like, I never gave myself wholly to my daughter. She never gave herself wholly to her daughter. My mother never gave herself wholly to me. I'm like, why are you saying it like that?
That was a weird phrasing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it just had to do with the idea of secrets that, like, no matter what, they can't fully reveal everything that's going on in their lives. So yeah, I guess it really is some Laura Palmer stuff that she was like involved
Yeah,
in.
it's like
creepy shenanigans.
I mean, I feel really bad because I didn't think this movie was very like spooky or like
It creeps me out so much.
I think it's because I've seen a lot of stuff like this.
I feel the same way.
Like I feel like for me it didn't like really break any new grounds because like the idea of a future ghost is cool, but they like because it's one of those things where they dismiss the ghost aspect pretty well. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, it was all faked. So you as the audience member are now like intrigued on like, oh man, she was sleeping with the neighbors and there's all this scandal. Laura Palmer's doing cocaine in the school bathroom kind of stuff. But then it's like, no. We're going to go to Lake Mungo to look for her burying something. And it's
I
just
thought
like,
she
what?
was burying a dead baby.
I know. That's where my mind went. The first
Like,
feel
that's
time
the
I
so
other
watched
thing.
it.
She buried her phone. Why didn't she just like smash it?
Or just
Smash
delete
it with
the
a hammer.
file.
Yeah.
Yeah, we wouldn't have the file then.
I feel like they could have done a bit more there.
Yeah, I feel like a lot could have been done more, honestly, because there's a lot of really cool mythology and lore as well in Australian supernatural stuff.
Yeah.
And I just felt like they could have gone into so many different things. And I don't know. Lisa, I can show you some scarier films.
Okay, I'm open to it.
I
For
can
me,
show you
it's
some-
it's the part where they're looking. Well, there's the reveal about the brother. Like, oh, I doctored up the footage to try to like, I don't know, have us have a conversation about my sister still. Like, maybe give us hope that she was still alive. But then, like, looking over their footage, they're like, oh, we know that's fake. But what's that over there? And you're like, I didn't even look over there earlier. And then you see the neighbor. It freaked me out so much. And then like in every photo now, there's like, she's there the whole time, even in the doctored ones where they're just like, oh, it's her ghost image. You're like, yeah, but she is actually over there.
I kind of like this.
It
This
reminds
makes
of
me want to watch the
movie-
Mothman prophecies again.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Or like there's that
That's
movie Ghost where essentially like the ghost is like it just shows like do you remember how many years goes on in Ghost? Essentially there's this guy that dies and he has to stay at the house. So he's the ghost at the house, but it shows like hundreds of years go by where it's like for the like very beginning part, it's like relevant to him because he's like, oh, my wife still lives in this house, and but then it's like 5 other families live in this house, and it means nothing to him. And then it's like years in the future where it's like I thought they were gonna make it seem more like, oh, she's trapped at that house, and then it's sad that they're leaving. But then it seemed like, I don't know, like I feel like there should have been like a more of a structured ghost lore to it, like where it's like, oh, she's stuck here, or like her ghost is here, or like why isn't she messing with the neighbors, or and I thought when she was like burying her stuff in the sand, I was like, oh, because some like a lot of people who commit suicide, like who think about it, they like give stuff away.
Yeah.
They have like their treasured. Like I thought maybe that was like her burying when you found out it wasn't a dead baby that she was burying, and it was like her prized possessions. I'm like, oh, maybe she was getting ready to drown herself in the lake, and then that was or in the dam, and so it's like I thought maybe that was her them saying like, oh, she didn't drown, she killed herself, and I was just like, it seems like there's a lot that there's a lot there.
I didn't feel like she killed herself. It feels like she knew there was an accident coming, but she just didn't know when or where.
Yeah, like the impending doom.
Right. It's kind of debatable, like what that what she encounters at the end. Like, is it a premonition of like this is what I'm going to look like when the bad thing happens to me, or is it like a different creature that's just like looking like her?
Did she even recognize it as
her?
herself?
I don't know.
Yeah, because like, would you even recognize yourself in that? Like, I think it'd be weird if you saw like somebody. Like, it's always weird, and somebody's like, "Oh, they look like this person looks like you." It's like, no, they don't, because I know what I look like, and that I don't. So it'd be weird to be like, you see this weird, horrific thing, and be like, "Wait, that's me." It's like, yeah. So I don't know. And then to film it on a Nokia phone and not be playing Snake, which is the only thing I did on my Nokia phone.
Honestly,
Snake.
I'm like looking up Lake Mungo because I'm like thinking like, come on, there has to be some like weird phenomenon that could have been there. And like Rainey said, it's got a lot of really cool fossil stuff and a lot of, evidence of early man is there, and a lot of megafauna is there, but there is something interesting on their Wikipedia page that apparently Lake Mungo is a geomagnetic excursion. Apparently it's like a site of a lot of weird magnetic phenomenon because it gets struck by lightning so much.
Oh.
So like, that could have been something neat to maybe explore.
right.
Is there any cool like Australian like Aboriginal horror movies, like stuff that deals with that? Because it'd be so weird to like live in a country where like people have been there for like literally tens of thousands of years and like have that.
Not really, because touching Aboriginal laws is not really a respectable thing to do, like messing with it. A lot of their law is actually kept in verbal stories, so a lot of it isn't written down. It's not very easy to research.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually really hard because like I do a lot of when with working on Apex, I do have a few Australian giant monsters that show up, like King Koala, which I'm really proud of. It's just a giant koala. It's fun, but he's also supposed to be representative of the Yowie. But like, it's really hard to get like actual descriptions of a lot of their mythical creatures that are outside of like what you can look up in a book, because it's all verbal stories. So really you can only like the rainbow serpent is only known because it's just talked a lot about and people have written it down, but they do keep their like religions and mythology pretty close to their hearts because it's a very important part of their culture.
That's kind of nice to hear, like especially coming from here where like everything is like it's just a secret Indian burial ground. It's like it's so easy to say, but then when you think about it, you just realize how horrible like that is. That's a trope.
Well,
it's like yeah, we just fucked with the dead people. It's like yeah, oh fuck.
It's like how Ayers Rock is getting cut off from tourism, isn't it?
They did it
already
last year.
is, isn't it? Yeah. Or you can't hike on it.
You can't hike up it. It wasn't. People were stealing rocks, and also because there's no toilets, people were doing their business on top of the rock.
Yeah.
And apparently there are very small pools of water up there, and there's actually some shrimp that live in the pools. So and they were killing those.
And like that rock is pretty much like, what is it? That rock's supposed to be the representation of like where it all began, isn't it?
It's
like that.
Yeah. Well, every single there's different nations basically. So you have all these different stories, and everything is significant in a different way to each nation. So it's hard to really pinpoint exactly like a common law.
Yeah. It's just
Henry.
it's
It's
really,
like what you said about the Gamera movies. You don't touch the rock. Right? That was
don't touch rock.
message to us.
In
He's
monster
like,
movies, you do not touch the rock.
Don't touch the sacred rock.
Don't touch rocks.
I remember I was watching this thing. It was like it was two different sides of like it was the people that wanted to hike on Ayers Mountain, and then like the Aboriginal people. And it was like a documentary going back and forth. But like the people that wanted to hike on it, they just seemed like such dicks. They're like, well, we should be able to walk here. It's like it's where these people think they came from. And they're like, well, we should be able to go on top of it. It's like. And then they showed like the last three people walking off of it, and they're like holding hands and it was like, you fucking dicks. Like that's all. It was so sad. But it's just like these people are so entitled to this rock that they could walk on. It's like these people think this is like where they came from and like have all these things from. It's like, but we should be able to walk on it. It's like, no, fuck you. Fuck you when you're walking on rocks and stuff.
Apparently this was all improvised.
That makes sense.
It seems really natural. Like it helps that I already don't recognize any of the actors because none of them are from the States.
Apparently
but even then, they just find really regular looking people, other than Kim Whittle.
Yeah.
There was no written dialogue in the script, only the outline of the story.
Wow.
That's interesting. But also, so I'm just looking at its Wikipedia page because I'm trying to like see if there was anything I missed, but apparently there is a post-credit scene that shows like a figure of Alice or her doppelganger stands at Lake Mungo in the darkness as lightning strikes. So I'm like, oh, so maybe they were incorporating the weird lightning.
Yeah, I feel like there's so many times where it's like you would have thought a different. Like I thought something was going to happen to her at the lake. Where it's like, oh, like not only did she have like the neighbor things, where it's like maybe like some guy took advantage of her, and then like that was why that was like she acted different. I don't know. It just seems. I feel like there's so many different movies going on at the same time, but it was just interesting having that location because you've never really seen any like Lake Mungo looks very distinct. Like it's like I didn't really think of anything I'd ever seen that looked like that, and I kind of wished more of it was there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can guess they didn't really have that much permission, no.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I feel really weird because like I'm looking at reviews and I feel like I missed something with this movie because like people are like, oh, there's the one seriously unnerving jump scare, and I'm like, it's the girl like the whole time. Like maybe that's just because maybe it's because I'm just so used to this genre.
Yeah, that could be it.
But like I also and not to like poo-poo your film choice, Lisa, because this is a very well done slow burn drama, but and like it would fit the ghost category for my own podcast and stuff. And like now there's a part of me that's like maybe I should like bump it up a little bit because I would be curious to see the grading, like how we graded on my show to see how it is. But it's one of those things where like I'm not a big fan of ghost stories because I feel like ghost stories can be very predictable and like their unnaturalness sometimes can take away from the thing. Like I was the most engaged when it's like, oh my God, she's had a sex scandal, or like me being like, please be a demon, please be a demon, please be like she moved a rock and like all hell broke loose. But then it's like future ghosts and I'm like, that's a Dickens move.
A little bit. Maybe some of why I like it so much is coming off of watching Hereditary. I don't know who else has seen that, but that has so many moments where like Toni Collette's character she's just there in the background, like not saying anything, or she like glides through the frame behind him and it's like climbing the walls, but there's no noise. Like it's so unsettling. Like there's a scene of like the cultists where they're spoilers for Hereditary, I guess. Like this naked cultist man just standing there in the dark not doing anything, but that was like so scary. So it's like stuff.
It felt like it was supposed to be like The Conjuring, but like not stupid. Like I felt like I usually don't really like this kind of movie, but like I was engaged the whole time. It wasn't even like being dumb and being like, I've got to find the ghost, but it's like I feel like if they did anything differently, it could have been boring. Like it was just cut right where it's just like, because some of those scenes, it's like if they just keep pulling on, you're like, oh, okay, they're just staring at that tree. It's in the woods. But yeah, I felt it was paced slower, but it was still engaging the whole time because I was just like, what's gonna happen? When is the ghost gonna come? And then the ghost was there the whole time, and I felt like I was lied to.
The ghost is inside you all along.
No, Laura, you were the ghost.
Yeah, I was like, oh.
See, that was something I thought would be interesting, is like exploring more of the idea that you're being haunted by your future. Like I think that has a lot of really cool potential.
Yeah.
Because like as someone who has, and this sounds really, really dark, but I'm comfortable about like bringing it up, but someone who has several near-death experiences that have kind of altered my spirituality in some ways or forms. Like the idea of like walking in the dark and meeting your like you as a corpse in the future is like terrifying. But I just feel like when the movie switches to the sex tape, me as the audience member, it kind of like was like, okay, I guess we're never getting our ghost. We're just going to be exploring the fact that this is Laura Palmer in Australia, who's just got lots of spooky secrets. And the only people who are trying to drive this ghost thing. I also get bugged that the psychic is just like, oh yeah, no, I knew your daughter in life. She came and visited me several times.
Right.
Or they're like, oh, fuck my neighbors for like having sex with my daughter. Where I'd be like, I'd be so mad if the person who's like now one of the family helping us go through this grieving process knew who Alice was.
Yeah.
And was like, Alice was like talking about death a lot in my sessions. Like,
it just makes it seem like that town didn't have like a psychiatrist or doctor. It's like, oh shit, we gotta go. I guess we go to the psychic / Home Depot,
right.
Like grocery store. Like the one man that did everything.
It's actually pretty funny because I think I mentioned to you in the email that Ararat actually used to be the location of quite a few mental asylums.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that'd be crazy. Because I was thinking like when you said the whole like future ghost thing, it always makes me feel like her ghost was just watching her life back. And so it'd be interesting, like if you had a movie where like that was it, but it's like you can't change it because you're watching it. Yeah. But essentially you just like show up at the best times of your life and be like, hey, that was great. Remember that one time I threw that sock and it went in the bin and nobody saw it? You saw it that time. Yeah, it was just like, I don't know. It was definitely not what I thought it was going to be. It was, I don't know. So
No, definitely was not what I thought it was going to be.
let's go with a generic grade scale. So I guess if or no, like 1 through 5. We'll do 1 through 5 because math's easier than making my husband convert letters to numbers and then. Yeah, but he's got a migraine, so he's having a hard time.
Oh, no.
Math's hard,
walking
guys.
away, I can only see part
Yeah.
of anything right now.
Yeah. So Rainey, just because you're from Australia, was this the best Australian movie that you'd ever seen ever? 1 to 10?
No, not really. I don't know. I feel like it had a different impact on me to everybody else, mostly because I've seen those actors in Blue Heelers before. Blue Heelers was an old TV show about
That's a soap opera, right?
I haven't
Kind
heard
of.
Blue Healers in such a long time. Holy crap.
So it kind of felt a bit like, oh, okay, you're in this movie now. That sort of thing. But I get the feeling that people,
so it felt like we were watching I would, if somebody would not told me this wasn't real, I would have thought it was real because I've never seen those people. But I can't imagine if you're watching this, you're dude, that's the people from Full House, just acting like they see
Right.
it. So yeah, I never really thought
the
about that.
American Netflix remake where it's just the cast of Full House, but one of the daughters died and they have to do the whole Lake Mungo thing.
Oh,
That would be fun.
Be good.
I would watch that reboot.
it's Lake Placid, or it's that dried up lake in Arizona. But yeah, and then I guess what are some good Australian horror movies that you would recommend too?
well, things that are similar to this that I could think of. So I'm thinking Picnic at Hanging Rock. That's an old movie from the 70s and one of Peter Weir's very first movies. If you know him, he did Master and Commander, The Truman Show, that sort of thing. Picnic at Hanging Rock is also similar because Hanging Rock is a culturally significant place for the Aboriginal peoples there, and also is about a bunch of girls going out for a picnic on a trip and then just vanishing. So it has a kind of similar sort of theme, I think, but not that modern documentary sort of feel. The other one I would recommend, which is more of a mockumentary horror film, is The Tunnel, which is a group of sort of guerrilla journalists go into the underground tunnels of the Sydney railways, and because they've heard some weird rumors, and they find something living in the tunnel. And that's scary.
I've heard of The Tunnel. That's actually been on my list of films I want to do for my show because I didn't
definitely.
realize that was set in Sydney.
Yeah, Sydney railway tunnels are weird because there's a lot of other stuff down there. There's old caverns and lakes, underground lakes sort of things. It's weird.
When I was in Sydney, I was honestly surprised. I was not expecting this train system to be the way it is. Just weaving and whooping around.
And
Some of the stations are really creepy too.
Yeah, they are. Some of those stations are just I don't want to be here at night. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here at night. No, thank you.
I would just love to see a pizza with the rat with the pizza. That's all I want. I feel safe.
Right.
No, they don't have rats in Sydney. They have parrots.
Oh,
No, we have something called bin chickens.
bin chickens.
Bin chickens.
Oh, that makes my day.
They're ibises. They're just really gross looking ibises.
Oh yeah, I do like the Australian hatred for ibises. I've seen a few YouTube videos about that. Australia's great.
Okay, so 1 through 5, what would you rate not the actual Lake Mungo, but the movie Lake Mungo? With your trip,
the place itself, 5 out of 5, because it looks so good. But the movie itself, I think I'd give it a 3. I think there's a lot of good ideas, but I think some of it's just lost on me because I think the cinematography, especially with showing the outback, I think it would have a different impact on people that aren't from Australia. Because it would feel a bit more atmospheric or creepy. But for me, it's just I used to hang out in the bush as a kid in the 90s. There's so many snakes.
Well, it's weird because some of the house looked weird because I kept thinking that it looked dated, but there wasn't anything that I could think of that made me think that. It was just that it looked so different because I kept thinking, I'm like, well, this is 2005, but like that's not like what my house
Yeah,
looked
there's-
like in 2005.
No, there's still lots of houses like that around here that were built maybe the 70s. They're just that style. They're very strangely like a weird layout. So it didn't feel like a very atmospheric house. It just felt like I could smell everything in this house, and it's disgusting.
Now that you say that, I feel like I can't see. I was like, that carpet, I feel like has an odor.
Yeah.
But that was because that was kind of the weird thing that I don't know if it took me out of it, but it was like confusing because I was like, this looks like a 1970s house, but not really what I would think of as a 1970s house. But then I was like, but this is the year I graduated, which isn't like, I mean, I'm not that old, but it wasn't like yesterday, obviously. But I was like, this isn't like 15 years ago looking. So yeah, it was just, and then I had to keep remembering like, oh, this is Australia. But then like some of the things didn't really seem like it. Sometimes I would kind of forget that I was in Australia other than them talking. Like it wasn't like things look drastically different. But a three. So Henry, what would you give Lake Mungo out of 5?
I actually would probably give it like a 2.5 just because like ghosts. There are some ghost movies that I really like. Like if I wanted to pick an Australian horror film, I'd probably do like The Babadook or Rogue, which is based on what was his lovely name? Sweetheart, the giant male crocodile that terrorized in the 70s.
Yep.
Because that's one of my favorite films, one of my favorite monster movies of all time.
I love Rogue as well. Yep.
Rogue is so good. Rogue is such a lovely.
Crocodile that ate people.
I'll have to give you some more crocodile film recommendations.
No, there's
a
like
lion recommendation.
Rogue, Blood Surf, Blackwater is also another Australian crocodile horror film.
It's also a sequel to that, Blackwater Abyss. And also, if you want a lovely,
I want the Abyss because it's got the cave crocs.
Yes, yep. I would also recommend watching Dark Age from the 80s.
I'll write that down.
Not the animated.
That's a good one. That's a fantastic one.
I actually just want to sit here. Totally forgot about Blackwater Abyss. Oh man, I really got to bump that.
Also, Dark Age has a lot of Aboriginal lore mixed in with it, which is pretty good.
But like it's just one of those things where I feel like this movie has a lot of potential, but like I feel like when they started being like, oh, it's not a supernatural phenomenon, let's look into the fact that she has secrets. I was like, ooh, this is actually really interesting because it's just like exploring like family secrets and stuff. I thought we were going to find out like all this backstory about the grandma and the mom and da-da-da-da. But then it's like, oh, this one trip at Lake Mungo. And it's like, oh, right, we haven't even been to Lake Mungo. She's like, it was really weird. She like was really excited when she came back. She didn't talk about it. And then they're like laughing about like, we bought her a phone a month before and she didn't have that or her favorite bracelet. I would have been like, any parent would have been flipping crap when you find out that you just bought a new phone in 2005 and you don't have it anymore.
I would have been yelled
and like
at.
It had low battery. Yeah, it had low battery. I was just like, why couldn't she have just smashed it with a hammer? Or like if someone had just said, oh, there's spooky lightning at Lake Mungo, and she got like hit by lightning, like near-death experience, that would have been super cool. But just to be like walking around in the dark and just like meet your future dead self, just out of the blue. Also, I think watching it in the day might
little
dim it
different.
a little bit.
Yeah.
This is how Rainey started her day.
Yeah, because I also do
I
sit here. I do also sit here being like, I just recently watched The Wailing, the Korean film. Like, actually, Lisa, watch The Wailing on Prime and tell me how you like it.
I think I need to. I can
'Cause
see
The
what
Wailing-
you mean about like it taking a track over, well, Twin Peaks style, right? Like, oh, we're here where it's like the ghost stuff, and then we're shifting over to where it's like I don't know, her
Messed
Laura
up.
Palmer thing. Yeah.
It was almost weird being so used to Twin Peaks where it's like, well, she just like and in normal life, like what had happened to her is horrible. But then like we're so used to TV where it's like, well, that was just like one thing. And it's like, but in real life, like obviously that's a horrible thing to have happen to you. But like for Twin Peaks, it's like this happened to her, and then she did this, and then it was just like all of these things that created her.
We just need to get Cooper to solve this.
Yeah, and so it was almost like it almost didn't seem enough that she had the one thing, but then I feel horrible saying that because I can't imagine going through that one thing. But it's like you're so used to movies where it's like, yeah, that's not that bad compared to other things I've seen other movie people go through.
I also didn't like that her boyfriend was like, oh, if I had known she was sleeping with the neighbors, I wouldn't be with her anymore. And I'm like, that's a quick jump to the conclusions because we still don't even know like what exactly they were doing. Like if it was a consensual thing, if it wasn't a consensual thing, I was putting chips on Sex Cult and that's why she was being on TV. Like I was just really waiting for that kind of stuff. But like it just seemed really, they kept trying to do these interviews and it was just like, oh, we just didn't know. And I'm like, I could watch Twin Peaks and get the same reaction from this.
Also, just remember, they never actually find the family that she was babysitting for. They just sort of like vanish. So we never get any answers.
Are they not the neighbors?
And I'm just like, what do you mean they moved? You lost them? Like if they moved,
It's
like
they got
forwarding
kids.
address.
Be worried.
Yeah, like forwarding address. You know, I'm sure it's 2005. There's got to still be like the concept of a paper trail.
Yeah.
In that
and it was
area.
like an entire family. Like like their kids aren't in school somewhere.
Like little Timmy, don't use your Facebook. When you use Facebook, don't you use your real last name. Like
our
I don't
neighbors
know.
might find us. Yeah, that was
I actually do sit here being like, since I just watched it with my brother and his girlfriend, The Wailing is kind of like this, in a sense. Which is a very decent Korean horror film. And for us Godzilla fans, one of the like familiar faces of the Godzilla franchise is the strange Japanese man who just happens to be in the village.
Cool.
Just so you know, Henry, that's everyone here.
Wait, who is it from Godzilla? Or is it?
He's like in Shin Godzilla. He's in Shin Godzilla. He's in Godzilla Final Wars. He's in a lot of the Godzilla films. Like the best way I can remember him is in Final Wars. He's like the Japanese commander that works with Don Frey in the beginning.
Oh,
he's like the Uhura, where it like tells people to do
like when you see his face, you'll be like, oh, it's that guy from Godzilla.
Okay.
Like
it's the one where he dies. You actually feel kind of bad in Final Wars because they kill everybody else on the ship, and then you're like, oh, they killed the old guy.
Yeah, it's that old guy.
Oh,
he's the one that like sacrifices himself to bring Godzilla out of the Arctic base.
Prime Minister in Shin, isn't he? The same guy?
Yes, he's one of the cabinet ministers in Shin as well.
I thought he's the main one because isn't he the one that's talking? And then they're like, it came onto land, and they're like, shit, it came onto land.
That's another old Japanese guy who's been in a Godzilla movie.
There are so many.
There's so many old Japanese guys who've been in a Godzilla movie. But that's what I would say to this film. I feel like it has a lot of potential, but it just like doesn't know what it truly wants to be. And I feel like I don't know if you can see it, but it's that guy.
Ah, that guy.
Okay.
Yeah. He's in The Wailing, which is a very good.
It's been on my list for a bit, so I should check it out.
Yeah. Do it tonight. You'll be fine. Watch it in the dark.
I know. Now we have like the dark to watch it in. Yeah, maybe we were more safe that we watched it at 3:00, so we weren't so spooked.
/noon/7 o'clock in the morning.
It's actually funny too because he did The Wailing and Shin Godzilla around the same time. So, but like, yeah, that's my 2 bits about it.
Your 2.5 bits.
My 2.5 bits.
Well, Nick, you can just give me a number and then I'll leave you alone.
I'm sorry.
I don't know if they can even hear you.
Oh,
Just give me a number. I'll say that.
sorry. 3.5.
3.5. Okay, thank you.
I do wish I would have maybe watched it later on.
Yeah.
It was more nighttime kind of thing.
Oh. I will go. I don't know. I feel bad because I usually don't like horror movies, but I like I said, I was invested because I felt like there's times where like I forgot that my head wasn't in the screen because I was like trying to look really close and I was
Right.
top part of my glasses in there. Yeah. So
I'd say every time it did like a screenshot, I was like just looking
Yeah.
through trying to
like I
figure
was
out
just
where
like
anything was.
very invested because I feel like I've seen some movies like that where they have like the really long shots where it's like I get bored because I have horrible ADD, so it's just like okay, and then there's like the tree. It's like there could be so many. Yeah, so I was actually very surprised how invested I was in it. So I'll give it a 3, and I'll go with Henry. I'll go 2.5. And then is this? And then Lisa, just you sell the hell out of Lake Mungo for other people, and you we'll finish with you because this is all you're doing.
I can understand how people feel about it being so open-ended, like, oh, is that just teasing us with something interesting and not exploring it further? Or like the flip-flop part of the story is like, is it supernatural? Is it like a crime story? But now this is going to sound like a cop-out. I think I've thought about it for a long time because it is so open-ended. Like there are things that they introduce and I'm like, wait, are we going to talk about that? And then they don't. So I think maybe that's frustrating for some people, but me, I'm like, oh, I got a lot to think about. Like, yeah. So it's that, and I don't know. The jump scare at the end with her popping up like her corpse self is creepy. But the part that really gets me is when they're looking at the footage and they're just like, yeah, we see the stuff that the brother tinkered with, but what's that? Like that was just like, I wasn't looking there. I'm so scared.
Is that more that you're just mad at yourself or more just like, it was there the whole time?
It feels like it was watching you while you were like that whole thing
yeah.
of like, oh, this thing was there the whole time and I didn't see it, so it feels like she was watching me. I don't know. I'm looking into it a lot, but I've thought about it for a long time.
That does make sense because like I watch movies with my sister. She gets really mad when there's not like a clear ending because she needs to be like done and move on. But like I would rather like just think about things for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So it just makes sense when it's like, well, yeah, it's like the thing I think about for this movie is like, oh, her ghost, if it is a ghost, is like she's alone in that house and they left her. Like that's what makes me sad at the end. It's like it's just weird how people can interpret that very differently, other than like everybody happy, man get woman at the end and they kiss and it's good. And now it's just like and it's like any other documentary. Like some of them just end, or it's just well, this is the things that happened. Yeah, and then I just wanted you to know the things that happened, and then it happened, and then they made the documentary. So it did remind me of that. It seemed like an older documentary. I guess it is from 2008, and that is a weird thing too, where it's like when this came out,
long ago.
and then but it's like, but for us, it's like it seems like forever ago, but then it's from a different. Well, for most of us, it's from a different country. So then it's like it just seems it's weird how you can still relate to people from like all over the place because it's like, oh, that's sad. Like obviously, like never lost anybody like that before, but it's like I can't imagine like I feel like I'd have to live in the house forever. Like I don't know. Now that I think the ghosts are just in the house, I'd be like, she's by herself. Like that's my main takeaway. But yeah, it was good. So do you give it a 5? Is that what you're going to say?
Yeah, I got to even it out. I got to hold my ground. Now I can do the whole. Maybe you just didn't get it. No, you guys made some interesting points. I can see where you're coming from.
That's a weird. It's kind of hard when you're like, I have this amazing movie, and you hear other people be like, but it's amazing. It's like I don't understand. That's how I feel about all Godzilla movies when I try to explain them to other people. It's like it's a dude in a suit. You're like, no, shut it up.
Well,
right.
Like
he's my dude in a suit.
Huh. Interesting. It's one of those things too where it is very interesting, especially with films like this, and just with like the background of doing my show for 3 years now, which is wild to think. but it's really strange that you get these like when I did Shin Godzilla's episode, I was ready for to be like, guys, what a cerebral commentary on film. Or like when Lisa and I recently did Gamera 3 Revenge Virus and watched it with two people who had never seen the Gamera trilogy, because it's considered the best giant monster movie of all time. And we love it, but...
And they compared it to Twilight.
Mm-hmm. They realized it's just Twilight, but for giant monster fans.
I can't really wait till that episode comes out.
They're not wrong. Not wrong at all. It made Lisa very, it was... You and I are very sad in part B.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it was one of those things where it's just like, don't you get it? This movie's really cool. And I had to throw in every cultural concept I knew that went into that film just so they would like it a little bit more. Yeah. So it's just it's interesting because I could see why people really enjoy Lake Mungo, but at the same time, it looks like it got a lot of popularity recently because it was on someone's list for top 10 underrated horror films to watch during COVID.
Chris Stuckman mentioned it last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they just re-released because we had a hard time because we were trying to figure out there was a re-release of it, and the way that it's labeled, it's called After. Yeah, it's called After Dark.
Volume 4.
Yeah, it was Lake Mungo.
Yeah.
And so we're like, well, is that a different movie or is that the documentary? And because when Nick saw it, he's like, oh, is that the real story of
yeah, I thought
the girl?
it was
Because we were dumb and thought the Lake Mungo was the lake that she drowned in. So we're like, oh, maybe that's this real story of the girl that drowned. And so then it was interesting to be the still come. That's why I was so surprised when I saw the year that it came out and then you wanted to do it. I was like, oh, it's not old. 2008, it's not old. I'm just gonna keep saying that because it's not old. But it just seems
still real to me.
Yeah, it's still real. But yeah, it was just interesting that it's still going. Lake Mungo's still around. Did you do the math?
Yeah.
What is it? At 3.3?
The average is 3.3.
What is that? Is that a C? It's a 3.3.
Oh, you want it out of 10? That would be a 6.6, which is a D.
It's a D?
That would be 6.6 would be a D.
Yeah, this is why I do 25 because 5 and 10s you can be like, oh, I missed 3. That's crap.
Yeah.
Right.
Most
So,
of the time when I record these, I forget that we're supposed to review them at the end because I just have fun watching movies with people. I'm like, oh, just thumbs up, thumbs down. Roger Ebert.
I definitely know I would recommend this to people for sure.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a good gateway into type of horror? I feel like it's a good entry level thing. That's it's not
found footage films are very hit and miss. Not everybody likes them. And the documentary, I think
I like mockumentaries better than found. I have a harder time getting into found footage because it's why do they have footage of this random thing? But a documentary makes sense because it's well, maybe they're reenacting the scene. I can get into mockumentaries more than found footage.
If you had to show this to someone new, you would have to give on the air that it happened. Because I sent you guys the link for Black Tapes in the chat because my partner at the time when I was getting into podcasts was like, Henry, you're going to love this podcast, Black Tapes. I'm not going to tell you anything about it. Just start listening. So I listened to it and it took me 5 episodes until I called them and I was like,
I'm wrong. No.
Is this for fucking real? Is this why do more people not talk about this? I've always been it's when Dragons, the Fantasy Made Real documentary came out on Animal Planet.
Right.
And everybody was like, oh, wow, we discovered a dragon.
No.
I think there was one on mermaids at 1.2.
I was thinking about
no,
that.
the mermaid one I hated because everybody was like, Henry, why didn't you tell us mermaids were real? And I'm like, I have. And they're like, I didn't know they were like that. I'm like, no, I've been telling you that they're manatees. Who have you been talking to? Who's hurt you?
The History Channel.
Oh, the History Channel.
We're at a 70%. My brain doesn't work right now.
It's a 70%, so it's a C. That makes more sense. I was like, those are all above half.
I'm sorry.
Solid C. Oh.
If it makes it here, I'll give you guys this. This is what I use for my grading calculator because it makes it so easy.
I was gonna do like a Who's Line where it's just like just make up random numbers because nobody cares. It's like I got to watch
11 bananas. out of
11
10
bananas.
apples. You have to do that. Like I usually use the letter one, but then you gave me numbers just now, and I got
Yeah,
confused.
it's a different. No, have you not noticed it's a different rating system every time?
Yes, I did
because
notice.
it doesn't matter.
I mean, technically, if it's a 7.5 out of 10, it's a 75%, which is a C.
Yeah, which makes
So,
I see.
go see this ghost film.
I have this app. That I
Yes,
like
so that was
using.
Lake Mungo, and then we'll be like, I guess everybody. So I guess we'll do outros,
Oh yeah, outro.
and then we'll finish. So Rainey, what tell us about your Pokemon podcast again?
All right. So I host the Writer's Lock. That's Lock with an E. We do incredibly niche readings of Pokemon fan fiction from the Nuzlocke community. So people that like to write about their Pokemon runs where their Pokemon die in tragically horrific situations. We have a lot of really talented writers and readers for the podcast. So if you just want to hear some snippets of chapters and also listen to our discussions on different writing topics, join us and hopefully you'll like it.
Apex, Henry, what do you got going
Yep.
on?
You can listen to my show, It Came From a Monster Movie, which has most of these lovely people who are on today on it. And then Rainey, if you haven't listened to it and you like what we do, you're always welcome. I will definitely make the time jumps because I do want to get more of. I do have a lot of friends and connections in Australia, and I do want to get more Australians on the podcast, which will be fun. But like I do that. I also am currently doing my dream project that I've been working on for the past like many moons, which is officially titled by Apex, which I now have updated its copyright, which is really good, and which makes me calm down a lot more. But Apex is going to be a giant audio drama, and it now actually has its own official Twitter, which is Apex_the audio drama. Where currently right now, each Twitter post there are 2 Twitter posts for 2 days, and each of those posts relates to one monster that shows up in the series. So it gives fans something to guess or read about what they might be expecting to see in the world of Apex. And that the pilot of that will be coming out summer 2021 because I'm halfway done updating the second script and planning my second read through with my cast. We're also going to break social boundaries with the giant monster genre because I'm here to wreck all of it.
All of the things.
Also, there's a good chance that a lot of people on this episode too will most likely be involved in some way or form.
I was like, I want to be a voice on something, even if it's just being like barking or something. I'll bark like a dog.
Good.
We did the Australian film Little Monsters as our first zombie film for the podcast, which was super fun.
Well, we just weirdly watched Henry caress his dog. Lisa, you want to take us out?
Sure. I have a comic that's in progress right now that I'm doing as a webcomic called Taking Back Tokusatsu. I update every Tuesday, so you can find that in my social media, which I'm at Lisa Napsiger on Twitter and Instagram. So if you can spell my name, then you're there. And I always forget to mention, but it'll be 2 years ago now, I had a young adult graphic novel come out through Iron Circus Comics called Minus. It's a dad and daughter crime story. Spooky.
Nice.
It's scarier than Lake Mungo. I don't know. I'm so glad you set this up, though. I wanted to talk about this movie. So thank you.
This was so much fun. Yeah, thanks for coming on. Hopefully I can talk all of you. Oh, you have to come on every time. Hopefully I could get the 3 of you to come back on different episodes. I'll have to force you back on.
You know me, I don't really do much. I am unemployed and have no job, and like this is my life now.
I pay you every month.
It was like we both.
Yeah, we both do. That's what it's such a weird thing because I feel like a weird sugar mom. I'm gonna kiss $5 for you. Kiss $5 for you.
No, it's thank you for being my sugar parents.
Yes.
Like,
I'm also Lisa's sugar parent.
It's true. Thank you.
And some of your sugar parenting goes into Lisa's sugar parenting.
Yeah.
Whoa.
This has been the Review Roulette podcast. I'm your host, Laura. A special thanks goes to our guest today. We had Lisa, who suggested that we watch Lake Mungo. She wanted to spread the psychological damage. She has an awesome webcomic called Taking Back Tokusatsu. Secondly, we had our Australian correspondent, Alex, also known as Rainey. She has a podcast called Writer's Lock. That's Lock with an E. It's a Pokemon fan fiction podcast. Lastly, but not leastly, we had Henry from It Came From a Monster Movie.